Hey, you can say what you want. Why do I need to pay you? The advert, who's paying for the views? Ads. So picture Home Depot, or I don't know who advertises on X. I'm just making this up, but picture Home Depot. They advertise on X. So an anti-Semite, Jackson Hinkle or Jake Shields or any of these lowlifes post something against the Jews and it gets 1 million views, they're now getting paid for that. Why is Home Depot paying for Jackson Hinkle to get paid for saying something negative about Jews? So it makes no sense. Welcome to Humble Brag. I'm Nate Mendel. Welcome to our channel. And we've done it. We've reached 100 episodes, some of which have been since taken offline because previous co-hosts have requested such. But the fact that I started out with episode 1 and here I am with episode 100, I feel pretty good about that. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, God. Free speech is in the limelight again. Who would have thought? 2025, New Year's, Happy New Year's. We'll be talking about free speech. For the past decade, or at least for the past 5 years, free speech has really been making headlines. There have been multiple debacles. There have been problems with free speech. You had the government infringing on it, government coercing Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms to censor certain accounts. There's been the whole fake news issue, and then there's been censorship across the board. So free speech is by no means a new issue, but it is certainly a very, very important issue because the entire freedom which we believe we have in the United States is incumbent upon it. Being that free speech has become so predominant in conversations across the intellectual spectrum, people have been wondering and asking themselves, are they free speech absolutists? Do they fully and completely believe in free speech, regardless of what it is? Is there a line we have to draw? What is ethical? What is moral? What is good for the world? And I've found myself asking the same question over the past couple of years. I think it was pretty straightforward until we saw the rise in anti-Semitism, so then I found myself double-checking my convictions. Free speech absolutism essentially posits the notion that you have to let people speak. End of story. Doesn't matter what they're saying. They might be hurting your feelings. They might be being mean. They might be saying horrible things, so on and so forth. But you have to be able to speak. You have to be able to maintain free speech. Otherwise, it leads to a whole host of other issues. This does not include hate speech, and it does not include inciting violence. So the government is supposed to stay out of people's expressions unless it's specifically inciting violence. That's, by the way, what they tried getting Trump on with the whole insurrection, quote unquote, that he incited violence. So free speech is supposed to be absolute in the United States. The government has shown that they clearly have been censoring. It's been proven. The evidence is clear. And people have been getting worked up about it, myself included. I understood a few years ago that free speech is at the core of our issue. If we didn't tackle it, if we didn't solve it completely and utterly and fully, that we would have a big issue. This went into Trump's election and the stolen election, just on the basis alone that he was censored, right? So from Google to Facebook to all the biggest media platforms, censoring a candidate essentially makes it an unfair election. So free speech goes into so many different things. But again, what is the value of free speech absolutism? The value is that if you bring it down to its core, it's that it's better to allow people to speak their mind, and you should not be able to punish them based off of the things that they say, than for them to hide it, think it, and for it to ruminate in the brain without it coming out. Why? And I believe this is true. I believe this is logical. The reason for this is because if I think something negative, say about a certain race, I think it, I speak to my friends about it, but I'm not allowed to say it publicly. It actually creates a certain safety hazard to a certain degree, right? Now we're dealing with a phenomenon that creates security concerns. Think about extremism of any sorts. You can't detect it if it's not spoken about openly and publicly. So I do believe that allowing people to speak their mind allows for a certain level of openness, and it allows us to tackle the problem. It comes down to the similar principle or the sentiment that a good diagnosis is a half a cure. Why? Because as long as the person is speaking it out, people know what to expect. They know what the deal is. But as soon as it's hidden, you don't know what the deal is. Kind of like anti-Semitism. How many people were hiding their anti-Semitic thoughts until after October 7th? And now the whole world blows up. You see that, a huge portion of the population of the world are anti-Semitic to their core. People you would never suspect because it would never come out. It would never come up. It's that idea. You don't want things brewing beneath the surface. It's better to have it out in the open, no matter how ugly it is, because then you could deal with it. You could contend with it. You could talk about it. You could try to change people's opinion, so on and so forth. After October 7th, I was on X. I was building up my profile on X because I was trying to get the humble brag out there and get some more followers and reach. And after going from 0 followers to 1,000 followers, and I was really putting in the time to create a genuine content, original content, thought-provoking content, I ended up getting shut down because I believe I said, "It's kill or be killed." I said those words, "It's kill or be killed." I was referring specifically to the struggle, and I was referencing obviously science, the notion of kill or be killed in wilderness. And so by me quoting those words, "It's kill or be killed," they shut my profile. And I always had an issue. It's one of the reasons I had an easier time departing off of social media and making it not part of my habits. Even though, just to mention, Humble Brag is on every platform, even though the office hasn't been sharing stuff yet, but I don't sit on those platforms. I've gotten off of social media, thank God. I've gotten out of the habit of scrolling through feeds and being addicted to statuses and all that stuff. I think those are terrible, terrible addictions. But I was building up so this was, more than a year ago. I was trying to build up the channel, and I was actually putting in the time. This was already after departing off of social media. I kind of came back after October 7th with a new fire. I wanted to see maybe it could help grow the channel a bit. And after saying that sentence and being, all my effort being put in the garbage, and I was creating content, creating this type of content is not easy. It's not cheap. It's not simple. It requires effort. It requires creativity and all this different stuff. And for X, it's different than what I'm putting onto YouTube and Spotify and just building the podcast. I was creating specific content that was tailored for X. I was writing stuff. I was creating videos specifically for it, so on and so forth. And the notion that a platform could just shut you off, I always had an issue with that. I always had an issue with the notion that a big conglomerate could just come and shut you off. And this was after... I believe this was after Elon Musk purchased X. So we're talking about after free speech was restored, quote unquote, on X. Okay, so these companies, they have policies, and if you violate the policies, you're done. You're off. Personally, I always had an issue with it. I hate control. That's why I love decentralization, cryptocurrency, the blockchain. I like the notion of decentralizing things. I don't like when one central authority has control over things. I had that when I was in Amazon, selling on Amazon as a third-party seller. You're always at the mercy of the platform you're building on. And if they decide to shut you down because you made one mistake or you said one wrong thing or you didn't go to college to learn their terms of use, it's just not for me. I appreciate real freedom. So I tailor my life and a lot of my decisions around that. It's one of the reasons why I don't put in so much effort online. And here and there, I'll have the people who help me and the editors and my assistants post some stuff and do some stuff because I don't want to be at the mercy of these platforms. But anyway, so I built up X, they shut it down. So I hated that and I understood the issue there, but I was still very excited. And the only reason I came back to X was because Elon Musk bought it. He restored free speech. He exposed the whole free speech scandal that the government was literally, during the elections, telling Twitter which profiles to shut off. It's just mind-boggling, right? Right now, something's been going on where X took away the blue check mark and the premium and the subscribers and the monetization from some very large channels. Now, all of these channels, or most of them, are anti-Semitic. They didn't ban them or shut off their profile. They just demonetized them. So you're talking about channels who have potentially hundreds of thousands, some of them even millions of followers. With that, they have potentially hundreds of subscribers, so they make money from it. They also make money just from monetization, standard monetization. X just shut down a whole group of people that fall into a certain category. Now, automatically, this makes pro-Israelis and pro-Israeli accounts and personalities very happy because post-October 7th, up until now, of course, but certainly post-October 7th, right when this began, these channels were just terrible, absolutely terrible, spreading lies and conspiracies day and night. And there's just nothing you could do about it, right? Because these are huge channels, they have influence, so if they put out propaganda and lies about Israel, there's just nothing you could do. Community notes, sure, almost every post gets a community note, correcting them, but the damage is done, especially with the speed that X works on. A post comes out, majority of the followers see it within a few hours, then a few hours later, somebody puts a community note, it's done. The damage is done. If you remember the famous Israel shot a rocket into a hospital or something like that. And meanwhile, it was a rocket that Hamas shot and it fell right back into the parking lot of the hospital. The damage is done. Once the lie spreads and it gets out there, it's so quick, so fast, so devastating. And this was happening over and over by tons of accounts. Anyway, X just demonetized a lot of these accounts. So all of these accounts, people who are like, go Elon Musk, free speech, are like, whoa, free speech is dead again. Because X just rolled in and decided to, boom, without warning, nothing. So what's the deal with that? So first of all, that makes me think, right? Makes me wonder, makes me think. Because besides yes, it feels a little good that these low IQ, idiot anti-Semites are getting a little treatment for, for all the lies that they spread. I try to put that on side because we have to think intellectually and ethically and moralistically if this is good and, what this means. So again, from my side, I'm burnt out from these platforms. Like I said, like the notion of me working hard for a few months and I build up a following and I created good content, like good consumable content, and then it just gets shut down and it's offline. Like I learned from my mistakes. Like I can never do that. So it doesn't mean I won't try to build channels on social media. I'll just have other people do it and I won't put the effort in. It's not going to be personal like I was trying to do on X. So I'm totally burnt out from these social platforms for so many reasons. First, years ago, it was free speech. Then there's the addictive aspects, which I think is terrible. I think social media is destroying our minds. And then there's just the fact that they could pull the plug and you're screwed. So taking all of my experience aside, I'm just trying to look at it intellectually. Is this a good thing? What does this mean? The truth is we don't know yet. Right? I don't think X made any big statements about this yet, but There's obviously a lot of drama, a lot of whining and crying by these anti-Semites. So in analyzing it, I look at a few points. I don't hate it. Right off the bat, I didn't either love it. I'm like, whoa, right? Elon Musk was the guy who was saying free speech. But when you think about it, there's something interesting there. X isn't impeding on free speech. What's the whole free speech argument? The free speech argument is that government shouldn't be able to control what you say, specifically government. And when you think about that, you realize that the censorship that has been going on social platforms wasn't necessarily a free speech issue. For example, if Facebook was censoring me, that means that I have a problem with a private company. I could choose not to use that company's product. Now, you could go into deeper arguments, but the whole world uses this, so you kind of do have to use it, and then you have to conform to it. Yeah, there's legitimate beefs and arguments to be had there. But I'm saying fundamentally, free speech essentially posits that government should not be able to control or tell me what I can and cannot say. That simple. What was the issue a few years ago? Government was the one doing the censorship. It wasn't so much that Facebook's censoring. That's also an issue. And in Congress, they had to answer to that and all this different stuff. It's that the government was getting involved. Government was literally influencing the election outcome with censorship and so on and so forth. So the fundamental free speech issue has to do specifically with government. Okay. Not with private companies. Private companies are allowed to do what they want to do. Of course, we don't want to support companies that censor, but they're still allowed to do whatever they want to do. But now X, they're not censoring what people can or cannot say. They're saying something else. We don't have to pay you if you're spreading that kind of stuff. In other words, you could say whatever you want. We don't want you to earn money on the lies that you spread. So it's specifically a monetization thing and a trust thing, because you lose your little blue check. The blue check is not just a symbolic thing. You actually get more reach. You are allowed to create longer posts. So there's technical reasons besides for the, I'm cool, I have a blue check factor. There's other reasons why people want that blue check. So all these channels are really worked up. They're not happy, to say the least. Whoo, they're going hard. And everyone's commenting about this and so on and so forth. So, I've thought about this in the past, because after the October 7th thing, and I saw what was going on with all the lies and nonsense, I wondered to myself, what do you do? Am I pro-free speech? Do I want all these anti-Semites online just saying what they want? Because I am kind of a free speech absolutist. I believe in those principles and those arguments for the most part. Drawing the line is where the conversation is. At what point are they inspiring hate and violence? Okay, we could get into that, but the premise I'm in agreement with. But then what do you do about these anti-Semites? I had thought about a different idea, so I kind of like where X went with this. Okay, to say whatever you want, but we're not rewarding you for it. I think there's another layer that should be added to this, and it has to do with the community notes. I think they should build an algorithm that essentially says, if I don't know much about the community notes, I just know that if somebody puts something up that's false, the community notes is going to correct it. Okay? Building off of that fundamental premise, all you need to do is build an algorithm that counts and calculates how many community notes percentage-wise a content creator gets. The more community notes you get, the less exposure your posts should get. And if you incorporate something like that, it'll give people an incentive to post accurate information. Now, whether that should also refer to monetary, like your earnings, do your earnings get less? Well, automatically, if your posts are getting less views, your earnings go down as well. I think something like that, you need some kind of incentive and reward system. And I think that could potentially solve the issue. So X and similar platforms, if they have community note type of stuff, let everybody say whatever they want. You want to spew conspiracies, talk nonsense about the Jews in Israel and all the blah, 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 low IQ garbage. No problem. Every time you get a community note because you spread a lie and the community note had to correct you, you get 1 point. The more points you have, the less exposure your stuff gets, even to your own following. Okay, because we know how algorithm works. I might have 4,000 subscribers. My video is not being shown to 4,000 subscribers, right? The algorithm favors people who engage, blah, blah, blah. Make it part of the algorithm that the more points you have, in other words, the less honest your content is, the less people see it. This, and in turn, this gives you the incentive that the more accurate it is, the more you could earn, the more exposure you get, so on and so forth. I think something along those lines might solve the issue. I like that this has come up again because when you don't solve these types of issues, they just come up over and over again. I've noticed this years ago. Like I said, I have my own beefs with it. There's a reason why I was on, I was off, I was on, I was off. I'm like, screw this. And then I'm off. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not doing this. I was screwed too many times. Like I said, again, the notion of investing your energy and then just being shut down. No, thank you. I've learned I'm not doing that again. But if there's a proper system for reward and punishment in that regard, for the people who want to take the risk, I'm not taking that risk anymore. But for the people who want to take that risk, no problem. I will say on the notion of risk that, like I said, I make a lot of my life decisions around that. For example, I got out of Amazon. It's just one of my pet peeves with Amazon. That was one of the big reasons. So I will literally make life choices and decisions to not be controlled by conglomerates and entities. It's very, very risky. I have friends who are building up big channels on X now because after October 7th, people wanted to start listening and there's this audience thing. And okay, if you really, really take terms of use seriously and you know every rule, everything you can and can't say and how it needs to be said, so on and so forth, kol hakavod. But man, you run a risk. Man, like even these anti-Semites who are scum of the earth. Just think about their perspective. They have 500,000, 1 million followers. They've been creating all this content. They post constantly to be in the algorithm and for the algorithm to favor them. And they have hundreds of subscribers and they're putting in all this work. And now X decides, you know what? You anti-Semite lowlifes, we're going to demonetize you. So even though it's good for Israel, I'm just thinking about the fundamental and moralistic and ethical aspect of it. So from a business perspective, that is just so unethical. No warning, nothing. So in general, tying your business and your income to platforms that could shut you off in an instant is extremely, extremely risky. It's also one of the reasons why I don't go so heavily on YouTube. It's like, cool, I make my stuff. I could go weeks or months without making a video. I don't care. I cannot invest my life into a platform that I then rely on the platform. I try to distribute my podcast onto Spotify, which then sends it to others. It gets where it gets. It is what it is. Because personally, I cannot be that person that's just going to say, yeah, do whatever you want with me. Like I'm going to literally put in sweat and money, growth, editing, building, buying the equipment, everything. And then they just say, nope, not you. You said something we don't like. You're too right-wing. You're a conspiracy. You're this, you're that. You're a hater. You're a racist. No, thank you. So, yeah, super, super interesting. Free speech. It was a huge issue with Trump coming back in, Elon Musk buying Twitter. It was in a certain sense restored. I think what we're seeing now globally is the response to that woke leftist onslaught. So free speech has been being restored. I don't think this change in X policy, if it's a policy change, I don't think it's necessarily anti-free speech, but certainly this is going to start a whole new conversation about reward and punishment. Hey, you can say what you want. Why do I need to pay you? The advert, who's paying for the views? Ads. So picture Home Depot, or I don't know who advertises on X. I'm just making this up, but picture Home Depot. They advertise on X. So when anti-Semite Jackson Hinkle or Jake Shields or any of these lowlifes post something against the Jews and it gets 1 million views, they're now getting paid for that. Why is Home Depot paying for Jackson Hinkle to get paid for saying something negative about Jews? So it makes no sense. So I actually, it's quite intriguing, that notion of it, that aspect of it. So I don't hate it. I don't hate it completely. But I do think my idea about reward and punishment based off of, say, something like community notes might be a more holistic approach to something like that. But anyway, let's keep watching it. Let's see what happens. I love observing cultural shifts, especially when it comes to fundamental stuff like this. So thank you for tuning in. Until next time, peace and love.
Leave a